Hey everybody, I'm Nico.
And I'm TK.
And that makes this X's for Podcast, your one and only stop for all the best books from a Wednesday. And a Wednesday it is.
Oh, it's Wednesday.
It's not just Wednesday, it's Wednesday and we're in the same little box.
Yeah,
right?
Together.
Which
at the home base.
One of a kind situation here. And of course, Bucky, show dog from the New Jersey side of things, is here representing as well. We are going to be talking about some comics. I'm really excited to talk about the books this week. It's been a big week for comics for me, like on a couple of levels. There's been the Fantastic Four trailer, which we watched together. There's a lot of news going on that Sony is going to do something with the Spider-Verse. Maybe. It's definitely not going to be another Spider-Verse movie anytime soon. But like, it's not just comics. There's like comic cetera going on.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like everything is just a Fantastic Four trailer for a while. To the point where, like, I forgot that I was about to call it World War Hulk, that Captain America 4 is coming out because the hype is just... unfortunately, on top of just Fantastic Four looks like a great movie, and Captain America could be a fantastic movie.
Oh, for sure.
There's a lot of potential there. It's not giving the same vibe in terms of quality.
No.
It's not giving the same vibe in terms of joy and fun.
Not remotely.
And that's a huger problem right now because it's all about the United States and the horrors. And we are not currently in this box, in this house, in this city, in this state, equipped with the ability to handle the horrors, paralleling the horrors, and then those being encapsulated in Harrison Ford on every steroid that has ever been created.
I love the de-aging shit. The de-aging regimen they have him on is Cocoon.
Yeah.
It is unbelievable.
Fun fact, it was developed for Calista Flockhart. And then when he accidentally got into it, they were like, well, now you're Red Hulk.
And what else is she gonna do? They're both old. It's adorable. And I say that actually kind of purposefully being a little bit pokey at how much comics have a really hard time with old people and then young people getting old. Like, you could be old, but you better be old.
It's really wild. There are a few examples that go against the grain, except then they all inevitably don't because somebody de-ages them. Mm-hmm. But like,
Agatha,
Destiny, the thing that I've never understood is that there is no class of hero in Marvel or DC where the older you get, the better the powers get, even if your body is withering away. Like, I would think telepaths would get so good to the point where they can show up to the battle in a wheelchair and they'll fucking kill everyone because their minds are so seasoned. Drew Hayes is an author who wrote this series of books called Superpowered that is all about a superhero college. And he has a couple characters that, and it is said, but you don't meet a lot of characters, but it is said in their, like, the knowledge of superheroes that there is a class of heroes who they just keep getting better as they get older. And you meet an old woman telepath and telekinetic who is simply not bothered by any of it, but she is 80. Like, her body is not killing it, but she can go into all the biggest battles because her mind is incredibly strong and seasoned. And it's so funny that, like, Destiny is like one of the bigger ones in terms of, like, well, she had lived so long that she had seen so much. And for some reason, Claremont was like, she also can do a high kick that will change the game. But it's also one of those things where I feel like it's like how the Golden Girls, one of them was like 48. I feel like Destiny was like 48. And they were like near to death as she looks to our future.
Oh, like Lexi Love on...
Auntie Grandma Lexi Love at 33.
33, she's dead.
They all think she's the oldest contestant to ever have competed on RuPaul's Drag Race. She is 7 years younger than me.
Yeah, I feel a little dead.
Yeah.
But like, your point is so well presented there. I was reading this interesting article that was like, Agatha getting de-aged into an unrecognizable character is probably permanent. There is no real reason to undo that.
Yeah.
whereas bringing in real Wolverine after there was Old Man Logan for a few years made a lot of sense. No one's ever going to be like, ooh, sexy young Aunt May, hey mama, like that's not what's on the docket. But then like we've got like Harrison Ford playing new, young, old Thunderbolt, who is Red Hulk, who I guess, I don't even know. Why does it matter if Thunderbolt is fit?
Yeah, it ought not to. But it would be unacceptable to look at an old person existing in like a state that is not impressive. Man, I bet they just rue that this all happened before Sean Connery could show up and teach us a thing or two about a thing or two.
Oh man, absolutely, like A Woman's Place.
I also feel like that we'll put some pins in this because it's going to come up for Batman too, which we're discussing later this week. Jim Gordon goes through a thing.
Oh man, Jim Gordon has his very own personal China Beach. Okay, so let's books. This is fourth grade, and we're gonna get to go to Pizza Hut. Let's do book it. Let's start with
Timeless. Let's get that out of the way.
Oh, sure. I don't know who this is for. I like the first two, right? There were two before this one.
Three.
Were there
2 or 3? Okay. There's the Kang Miracle Man one,
but that one's not this Power Man.
No, there was a second one. I feel like that was Kang adjacent. What was the thing with the Twilight Court and all? That was also a Timeless. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's
and then there was the Timeless with Power Man. Timeless. When you say I don't know who this is for, I also don't know what's going on. Like Timeless, we get Timeless in part from Timely Comics. Timeless is an adjective like astonishing, invincible, these things that get put on titles and we use them a little bit. We get Uncanny Spider-Man. We can play around with these things. Time descriptor is something that Marvel uses, but this is not a line, a project. This has no Timeless, has no focus.
Okay, there have been 3 Timeless.
Yes.
The most recent one.
This was where we were introduced to this Power Man.
This is really his introduction.
Yeah.
That feels...
I think so, unless there's stuff we don't know, but I don't think so.
I mean, it is. It just feels like how... I think that's even part of where my brain hurts. Because, like, I'm looking at this, and it was released in... December of 2023.
Yep.
And I've literally forgotten that there wasn't another one of this year.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten that it was Time Slide.
Yeah.
Hey Andrew, yeah, TK is here for me being a super cool bro. He's the best.
Are we not saying why I'm here?
Oh, I'm old. I have a birthday, and he's here for my
Nico's
birthday.
birthday was yesterday. Everybody give him some love for 39 trips round the sun. And I came down to celebrate with my bro. Because I love him so much. And that is all there is to say about what is going on in the world. Timeless is something that I don't feel right now.
That is true. +4 will get you wherever. But the main thing I do want to say here is I did not realize that this was the only other issue of this, because when I cracked this boy open, and I sure did, number one, I didn't love the cover. I like the idea of the cover, but there's something about the way the Sentry is captured that feels a little foreign to the Sentry, and I got that it was the Sentry by feature contour, but not by face. I'm really coming down on Marvel, not this cover artist, for the lack of you've got to find another way to show Danny Rand. I don't care if it's a glowing tattoo above his eye of the Dragon of Shaolao. He can't wear the bandana anymore. Get over it. And I guess I thought the interior art vacillated between really clean, crisp, pretty, and like sketchy in a cool way. But like the book did not feel timeless. The book felt very of a moment last year.
Which is exactly what it is. I mean, again, like, I don't know what is the project here. So like I said, this is, as you mentioned, this is volume 3, and volumes 2 were about Kang. And ostensibly Volume 1 was about Kang intersecting with Miracle Man so that Miracle Man could be folded into the Marvel Universe in some capacity, including like a reference to a Miracle Man emblem in the Marvel Universe that then never went anywhere. So it felt like the yearly Timeless book was a way of saying, here's where we're kind of at with our giant overarching universe. And, you know, when it, in that first year, we didn't get any Miracle Man, I was kind of like, well, yeah, I mean, it takes a while. This is Miracle Man, like folding him into the Marvel Universe. This isn't just Angela where you can be like, oh, there was another realm, don't worry about it. And then you just have this character in there.
It's Spawn!
This is a character who could essentially, you know, he could make it the ninth Cosmos. Like this could be a celestial fighter. This is a big character. So when in a year when we hadn't had a word, didn't think anything of it, and when Timeless Volume 2 was announced that year and it was Kang again, I thought to myself, okay, this is where we'll get hint 2. This is maybe a 3 to 5 year project. Then it's this future space King Arthur's court, and still I'm like, this is probably important. Like somehow Arthurian legend will jive with Miracle Man mythos because they're all out of Britain, and somehow that will become like, maybe these are they will herald the arrival of Miracle Man. I'm totally into it. And then very soon after that, those characters, the Twilight Court fell into Jed McKay's Avengers, and within 6 issues they were gone, and it became a whole other ball game. You just immediately realized that something wasn't right. And then Timeless 3 was announced, and it just had nothing to do with anything that had come before. So now I don't think of it as Marvel kind of giving us their State of the Union, throwing some cool hints at us. Throwing hints at us is what these are for in the stupidest way possible, unfortunately. Rather than saying, like, here's a taste of this high concept idea that we might bring Miracle Man into the universe, it has become, here are 3 to 4 splash pages with a shattered panel structure. You know, it's a shattered mirror, it's a shattered window. Yeah, just whisper, yes, this is perfect. And then it's like, oh, look, there's Jean Grey in a Phoenix outfit, so now we know Phoenix is coming back. Oh, look, it's, you know, Jessica Jones, and she's got spikes on her arms, so she's becoming a dragon. Oh, look, it's Iron Man and Emma Frost, and they're having a beer. So, like, it to the point where they just gave up on Time Slide, and they were like, here is a list of the plot lines that we're claiming is like in universe, this is how people referred to the events. But they're just not like, it's not like World War II. It's just like Blood Hunt. Like, nobody called it Blood Hunt in... None of the people that were there for the vampires taking over the world were like, remember the Blood Hunt? They're like, no, remember the time vampires took over the world? And if the list of events had been like, that time vampires took over the world, I would have thought it was really cool and funny, but they were all named after Marvel plots. So it was hacky and stupid. So now this is just essentially a cheap showcase for much more specific ideas, not broad ideas. Like, we're rethinking how this universe works. We're looking at like the type of stuff we would discuss in Hickman's Gods. No, it's specifically like, hey, you might see some werewolves and their sentinels. And then the hope is, I think, that CBR and AIPT and Screen Rant will pick these up and be like, you'll never believe the latest thing that's coming back to Marvel. Shoes, like, it just, I don't know, very cynical. So taking all of that and being like, no, we had something here, we're gonna update this, but we're also doing Time Slide, which was this year's Timeless, not called Timeless. And then to do this Timeless book where it has nothing to do with Timeless, now it's just about alternate Power Man, who is a perfectly fine character. Do whatever you want with him, but don't call it Timeless, call it Luke Cage, all of the powers, man. I don't know what you want me to call it, but you can't call it Timeless because it's not. It is so timed. It is so locked in a box of time.
Luke Cage, the Last Marvel.
Love it. Oh, love it. 20 seconds.
There you go.
Listen, we can spitball ideas. Like, I don't know do you think this is getting people to buy previous Timelesses? Is it worth it for that?
But like, and then, but like, so where do the timelesses get collected? Like, no, first of all, it is not, oh, you come in with me, cause I'm coming with you. I could do, Power Man all day, but, that Andrew asked if this is Power Man 5000, like, the band. I was a big Static X fan once upon I was a weird, anyway, so, I think that one of the things that I wonder about is how is Timeless collected?
Yeah,
because
it's going to be its own Omni.
Yeah, because like it, you know, if Uncanny X-Men Alpha came out, I would know that they're trying to get me to buy Uncanny X-Men volumes 1, 2, and 3 because Alpha is going to be contained in 4. But they don't make money on back issues, ladies and gentlemen, unless they get them from digital stores. Then they make the money on the back issues, but like they don't make money on you going to your local shop. Like if you buy a book from 6 months ago, it doesn't help Marvel.
And this would also make a terrible collection for any kind of Omni. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, perfectly fine story. This is about Luke Cage having Sentry's powers, the Chi of the Dragon of Shallow, and of course his own powers, and then the Hulk's powers.
And he's basically fighting a Rom the Space Knight Shogun warrior Tron villain.
And there's a celestial heart that is like it's like in the universe. It's like a functional part of the universe. So whatever. This is a very like cosmic Marvel. What if at the end?
I bet it's gonna read great in trade.
I imagine it will too. I could see this character being very cool, showing up to say like, "Hey, Old Man Galactus, I'm from the future, and Old Man Galactus is there, and he's extra hungry now, so he's going back in time, and now I'm here." And even as it's like, I'm like, oh, I'd be perfectly happy to read that. I clearly wouldn't because I am talking about it like it's a terrible idea.
I love that we're talking shit about the book and we're like, but we'd read it.
I mean, it goes to show like there's a lot I'll forgive if the presentation is right. If you're like, hey, we just thought, what if Luke Cage was the last Marvel and had all these powers? Sure, if you're honest about it, if you're like, yeah, we just felt like doing it. Or tell me what you are trying to do here, because I don't get it. And this isn't a bad book, but I also feel like the kids 5 to 8 years ago thought Hive Mind was really cool. And they have written a bunch of great books. They're great writers. But Marvel kind of uses them like, and you'll never believe who we got, your old friends Hive Mind.
Stop treating it like they're new kids that are doing something bold. Because like that's that fallacy where like I feel so bad, but when I think something's old, it means that it's ancient.
Right.
And what's always fascinating is people who are 24 or so are the last people to realize that what was cool when they were 18 is old now, because they're still in that, oh my god, no, that's my favorite, I still buy their tickets when their new album, oh, and everyone I know checked out that album. So like they still kind of like fall into that trap. It's not that Hive Mind aren't awesome, and it's not that they, you know, because I think the first 2 Timeless are Jed McKay.
Yeah.
Then third one is Hive Mind. This is Hive Mind.
I think the third one is maybe also Jed McKay.
I thought it was Hive Mind. I thought,
could be right.
Yeah, I thought it was just on the Marvel fandom. But they really should be established voices in the Marvel universe. Please stop treating them like they're new blood.
Yeah, or like stop treating writers like, hey, we got your guy, like Joe Kelly's here, please read it. Look, it's Joe Casey. This Spider-Man nonsense can continue. If this is the right person for the thing, figure out how to tell me that. Because it's even like, you know, the 8 Deaths of Spider-Man isn't a bad...
Oh, no, you brought it up. Oh, good, then I can too.
Isn't a bad set of stories. It's just like, this is not Zeb Wells' Amazing Spider-Man, so we could have ended that. This is what it is, and I don't know what the feeling was about having Joe Casey back to write this and what it meant for the future Spider-Man, but I can get there. I need you to communicate with me as a consumer, because I fell off on this hard because it just is its own cool story. Gimme.
Well, so not to bring up He Who Shall Not Be Named,
Please.
but when Buffy season 8 first came out, it was another, they're new Buffy pilot at Hulu, starring Sarah Michelle Gellar, directed by I think Chloe Zhao. So director of the Eternals, doing Buffy with Sarah Michelle Gellar at Hulu. Couldn't be more excited. But the thing it reminds me of is when Buffy season 8 started in comics, and they were like, it's gonna be what it is, and then I can't believe the number of names I'm gonna say that make me go eek. But they announced Jeff Loeb is doing an amazing issue. They announced all these people are going to be connected to it in one way or another. Brian K. Vaughan is doing the Faith arc, and there's all these pieces. And then they say, oh, well, because nobody can let a good thing die, Angel is going to come back for a run called After the Fall. And they were pretty clear that After the Fall was 6 issues. Then it was 9. Then it was 12. Then it was 17. Then it was just an ongoing series that lost the name After the Fall. And it just never ended. And the more they stuffed into it, the less special it became. And when they initially pitched 8 Deaths of Spider-Man, they made it sound like 8 tight issues. And now there's all these point death issues, and there's all these fill-in writers. And it almost feels like it's going to be its own omnibus before the run actually starts with number 1 in a few months. But have you seen the thing going around that Spider-Man is going to die in 8 Deaths of Spider-Man, but it'll kill him. But the problem is that's literally the opposite of what just happened in Spider-Boy, where Spider-Man had so many extra lives in him, he could give them away so other people didn't die. It's bad timing, guys. You should not have done these two such similar stories together.
It is. I don't know. And, this is all just kind of circling around the fact that, with Marvel, it's a lot of marketing issues. It's a lot of communication issues. It's a lot of the packaging matters. The house that I read this in matters. And if it's just a fucking dump, that doesn't make the content worse, but it does constantly remind me that I am in a house that is in shambles while I'm simply trying to read my sweet little stories.
So you might think you're in a house of vengeance, but then they tell you that you're secretly in a house of violence,
which I do want to get to, but I let this one go a little too long, and I just want to quickly respond to Me for Prime Minister's thoughts on the F4 teaser question, because we did mention it, but we didn't talk about it that much. So I do just really want to quickly say, the one thing I did say was that it's very different from Captain America Brave New World in that it felt really fun and joyous, which I thought was also something that was missing from Superman. From the trailer for Superman. So I personally am really excited. It just gave me actually despite the really period piece look, a very timeless feeling. It felt fun. It felt slick. It felt exciting. It felt like it had a lot of energy. And I was telling Nico, I might not do the rest of this trailer cycle. The teaser, that 1 minute 30 seconds was probably all I needed to be convinced that this looked like something that I'm going to be on ticket announcement day, refreshing Fandango to get the best seats for the earliest showing I can get, and then I want to just experience it.
I love that. I think for me, it had all of the clarity of a Next Time on Mad Men, but it was polished like one too, so it was really beautiful. I felt like it captured a lot of what made WandaVision work on the surface. That attractive, sleek encapsulation of an idea. It clearly gave us them in their present, as opposed to them in their past, coming to that present that's going to be the status quo. We're in their status quo, or so we think. It made me remember how little we actually knew about Endgame from those trailers, which made it look like Nebula and Tony in space. Kevo, I know we can't hear you, but you're right there. Did you want to give some thoughts on the Fantastic Four trailer? Oh, I think he's coming in.
Oh, your headphones so you can hear.
Okay.
I liked it.
How'd you feel
Good
about
thoughts. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing more. Hopefully there's a longer trailer attached to Brave New World. We'll see.
He's looking forward to a longer trailer attached to Brave New World. Nice. We're doing a bit of an unusual relay here. It's sort of like Rodizio, but what if the thing that you never ran out of was having to repeat things? It's amazing.
So on to what I hope will be an equally exciting property when it is eventually adapted for the MCU.
Yeah, Spirits of Vengeance was not a book that made me happy, unfortunately. It felt like they didn't know what the book was. It felt like from the first issue it was going to be an anthology, and then it quickly settled into an ongoing, and then it became a mini series, and then it ended to lead to a new mini series. I don't know.
I love that there is enthusiasm at Marvel for Ghost Rider.
Yes.
And click away for a minute if you don't want to hear spoilers for this, because there are a couple big things that happen that I am going to mention that I'm really excited about. I was really excited to see Robbie back.
Yeah.
I was really excited to see it mentioned in the context of the God Quarry, which is where we last left him. It drives me a little insane when Marvel has a character show back up and go like, oh, you won't even believe where I've been. And then it's just like an editor's note, and nobody ever bothers to show you how they got out of the very specific, difficult spot a previous writer left them in, that it would be like a big deal for them to get out of. So Samir Pirzada putting in the work to actually show how Robbie Reyes is going to go from the God Quarry, where he was left at the end of Jason Aaron's run, to be back with the Ghost Riders. I really appreciated that, and that it folded in Phantasma, who I'm still a little shaky on. She is the new champion that started as just concept art for, you know, what young sidekicks might look like for a bunch of characters. Don't love that because people were like, we really like that. Marvel's like, well, we're going to give it to you until you choke on it.
Speaking of give it to you until you choke on it, though, how did you feel about Loki? I was so pissed that Loki is the hero of the last Robbie story, and then is the bad guy of this Robbie story, and Robbie seems to be like, Loki, fuck that guy, I always hate him.
Yeah, I mean, it was unfortunate because I liked the idea that it was Loki being a whatever mischief maker, that Robbie never got to say to him, I met one of you that was the best of us. That was literally Avenger Prime. Like, for all that the Avengers is the big three, Tony, Steve, and Thor, when it came to the fundament, to the foundation of reality, the one Avenger was you fucker. That didn't come up. Sort of like, for as much as I love that Robbie was there, it's like whenever you shine the light on the great thing, I see all the other things that maybe aren't so great. And so, you know, it was cool to deal with Michael Battolino, a Ghost Rider who sort of is unsung in a way that maybe was correct because nobody was writing him right. And it was just like, what about like adding more cop to the Vengeance lore, and like, what if Punisher's head was on fire, and then that got inspired other Punisher's heads to be on fire? So for a more nuanced writer to take the character, interesting proposition to me. I was a little bit like, okay, I'm sold. Like, I'll buy, I'll bite. But then, so for one thing, it sort of drives me insane that 8 different people have tried to codify Ghost Rider lore, and everybody just keeps shifting. To me, one of my favorites is Jason Aaron, who I thought was writing the definitive idea of what's going on here, including bringing heaven into it, and this idea that like Ghost Riders are like almost a kind of spiritual technology that both sides, heaven and hell, possess and use in different ways, and that Zarathos was Zadkiel was a Ghost Rider that was actually made of heaven, not from hell. And there's just interesting stuff happening all over the place, but none of that is really relevant. And it's changed so many times, and the origins of all these characters have changed and who they are as Ghost Riders. It drives me nuts that they keep referring to Michael Battolino's Spirit of Vengeance by the name Vengeance. They're all Vengeance. They will all walk into a room. Zarathos possessing somebody walks into a room and goes, I am Vengeance. I am that which like seeks to make it right. You know,
I'm joining the X-Men. My code name is Mutant.
Right, exactly. Like that's, you know, even X-Man, like that's, you know, we did think that was nonsense. He's my favorite character, but the name is nonsense. And So the fact that his name throughout this is Vengeance, but then they also start referring to him by a demon name, it just all gets very confusing. And I am passionate about Ghost Rider because this fucker made me read so much of it, and now I'm obsessed with it. But I'm constantly like having to dig through, and I cannot. My favorite thing as a comic reader is to be able to like say to you guys, hey, if you want to know specifically what's happening, read this, this, and this. And that's basically how it works to be a Ghost Rider. I cannot give you a single run or multiple runs that you could read, and then I could say to you, you now know how Ghost Riders work. Because the next person who comes along is going to be like, it's actually the bikes. Bikes are sentient in the Marvel Universe, and every Ghost Rider is actually just the bike come to life. And Marvel's going to treat that like it has always been canon, and they're never going to reference the Jason Aaron run ever again. And this book is just kind of falling into a lot of those traps. It's very cool. It's very good. It's, Samir Pirzada has a lot of passion for these characters. He brought Danny and Johnny back together. There is interesting stuff happening here. Ben Percy is over in his own books writing Helverine, so we're bringing, a mutant character into it. I'm very annoyed that nobody's talking about Kushala and that nobody is talking about the Spirit of Variance, who was, when we last saw him, was possessing Sean Cassidy, who had been murdered by being skinned alive by Moira McTaggart and came back as the Spirit of Variance, basically a mutant Ghost Rider. Amazing idea. He ghost rode Juggernaut one time. You guys, it was so good. But nothing, not a word, not a peep. Haven't heard from that character again.
And I'm pretty sure Banshee's just Banshee again, and he's just running around Astonishing X-Men.
That's right, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ on a cracker. So there's just so much stuff happening with Ghost Rider that, and there's other, like that Alejandra, like there's so many other people that have been Ghost Rider, and Knuckles O'Shaughnessy. I mean, he's safely where he's supposed to be, but I'd like to see Knuckles.
I'd love to see Knuckles O'Shaughnessy.
Ghost Rider stuff is very cool. It's very complicated. It deserves better. And what we got was 6 issues of somebody being like, yeah, I'm one of you guys. I really love Ghost Rider. And Marvel being like, here is this thing that we can't stop from doing. We gave this guy a 6-issue mini. It's really great. Issue 7 is actually issue number 1 of a whole new series that is absolutely not a whole new series. It is just issue number 7 of this. But this book was Spirits of Vengeance, and it ended at issue 6, and Spirits of Violence is starting with issue number 1 next month. And you in no way will get... Do not believe the lie, my friends. If somebody tells you, just pick up Spirits of Violence, you don't need to have read Spirits of Vengeance. You 100% need to have read Spirits of Vengeance in order to understand Spirits of Violence. And frankly, if you liked Spirits of Vengeance, you will not get a satisfying... It's a terrible ending. That's really why this book is getting a low grade for me. Because if this were the ending of the issue, I'd say, yeah, this is fine. This is good. This is in the B range. As the ending of the mini, it's probably kind of like a D, because that's not fair. It's not fair to say, hey, I have ended my mini series. JK, psych, you have to go pick up this next issue because I haven't resolved a single thing.
It really reminds me of... And there's a reveal that you left out that I think is very interesting that you didn't, the Barbara reveal.
Yes, I did leave that out. I had a note on that. Yeah.
I worked at a bank at one point, and I had this, a person I worked with, and she was great. She was an avid reader. And I was like, what are you reading? And she was like, well, let me tell you the setup. A woman is sitting in a restaurant, and every time she tries to get the waiter's attention, he ignores her. And she's sitting there and just noting the people that pass her by. When she sees her ex-boyfriend walk in with a new woman, she goes to get the waiter's attention again, but that's when you find out she's a ghost. And I was like, I'm not gonna read this.
What?
And she was like, no, that should have been what got you sucked in. And I'm like, well, it didn't work. And that's where you put a little too much on that selling point there, yeah. Carmela. And show that was her name. And
incredible metaphor, Nico. I really gotta applaud you for this.
Right?
I didn't know this was coming. This is blowing my mind, having gotten the reveal out of Ghost Rider.
And so it's sort of like, you really thought this was gonna be the thing that, like, you thought this was the moment. You thought this was it. Oh. The book is fine. It's a little too confused. It opens with like kind of like an anthology feel and then immediately pivots away. It does require so many years of the knowledge that you're referring to, but it doesn't treat any of it as canon.
Yeah.
It treats it all as fluid canon,
Yeah.
which works and doesn't work, my friends. I love cheesecake and I love cheeseburgers, but I'm not going to have them in the same food blender product. Bad. So like I love what they're trying, but I don't know. This book for me was a C.
Yeah, I think C is the right range. I'm going really hard on this last issue of the book because again, it's just not fair. You didn't end your book. Even when you have a trilogy and you're writing the next one, you still have to end the first one, and you can have things that say like, hey, you might want to come back because we're going to talk about some stuff, but you can't literally be mid plot point. Which is what this is, because the last thing that is revealed is not something you can walk away from. It is this reveal that this is the other thing that also really annoys me. I got to talk about it real quick, and this is why I didn't mention it initially. So the reveal is that the spirit of violence, who's been going around causing trouble, is there. Who is it? And of course, we all know it's going to be somebody. So like, it better be a good reveal. It's not. It is the sister of Danny Ketch. Who is a character that has appeared before.
It's Rick Jones.
Rick Jones, thank you. That actually would be great. That'd be a cool reveal. Her name is Barbara. Howard Mackey created her. She's a character from the 90s. It's like pretty expected. Like, I didn't assume it was her or like guess that it was her, but it's like, oh yeah, she's associated with the family. Here's what drove me really nuts. She's Johnny's sister too. They're biologically related. And like, this is where I'm saying Ghost Rider lore is so stupid and confused, because it really just is that both Johnny's parents, these are not half siblings. Both Johnny's parents had 2 more children and were like, we're people who get possessed and our skulls are on fire and we smoke and drink a lot anyway and we work at a carnival. Probably we could give up these other 2 kids and put them in a nice home and they would have a good life, which is exactly what happens. So he just has 2 full siblings, and one of them is his like brother, ride or die for life, and the other one he's like, I think you have a sister. What was that like? It's the weirdest thing. There's a lot of other Ghost Rider family relation stuff where it's like, that is fully a person, and you talk about it like it's just some lady that you saw at the supermarket. It's very weird.
It's Scott Summers-ian.
Yeah, it's super odd. So yeah, I mean, there were parts of this book that just really functionally didn't work, but you can see Sabir Pirzada has so much passion for the idea of the Ghost Riders, and I really love that. I really want to encourage that, but I do want Marvel to start asking itself these tough questions about how they're putting out these products.
I love that, and I think that's really important to start asking themselves, because my whole focus with this episode is, are we better off? As somebody who constantly loves to marry off gay penguins, are you better off now than you were a year ago? Are you better off now
no preference I got
than you were when you started Spirits of Vengeance? Are you better off now than you were in a minute than when you started the Chip Zdarsky run? I do not feel better off for having done Spirits of Vengeance as a fan, but I am happy things are being pushed back into place. I'm going to make a comment. Happy as I was with it, the Ben Percy run of Ghost Rider had nothing to do with Ghost Rider or the Ghost Rider mythos. It was all about cool stories that the Ghost Rider should act as a vehicle for. But he didn't move the narrative.
Yeah, I agree. And like, I'm so glad you put it in the terms of, are you better off? Because like, the Percy run is where that question gets complicated, because there was a real initial boost of being better off for understanding how Marvel could own horror comics for the future, and how a horror writer could come in and tell horror stories using characters. Because the thing about, I mean, like, Ghost Rider is a Marvel horror character, Werewolf by Night. There are all these characters that when we say horror, they came from 70s pulp horror. So they're limited by the comics code. They're not going to be really scary anyway. Like, in the same way that 70s budget horror movies aren't really scary to you. They're fun. We love them. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, is a blast. But like, compared to what people like, compared to like Terrifier and like horrifying stuff that people make now, they just don't really there's no jumps, like there's a lot of things where like, yeah, that didn't scare me. It was really cool, but it didn't scare me. Great aesthetics. And Marvel took a lot of those types of characters from the 70s and hung on to them and kept writing them, but never knew how to update the horror to make them still identify with that. So a lot of them became like magical characters or beasts, fantasy beasts, but they lost that essential element that they were born with, which was the seed of horror.
It's how Hellstrom became David Bowie.
Right, exactly. Fantastic example. And is a teacher at Strange Academy.
Yeah.
So, like, fantastic example. And Strange Academy is not dark academia. Again, it's not horror magic, which is a thing. You can do that, but Marvel wasn't really doing it. Percy came along and said, we can do this for Ghost Rider. Here, let me show you. And for like the first 6 issues, I was like, you're fucking right, we can. Yeah, we can absolutely do that. Show it to me, tell it to me. You are an amazing horror author. Like, take this character and do something with it. He told some really good horror stories. But comics are a twofold business. Unless you say specifically, this is a silo, whatever is in here is not really out in the rest of the world. It's not connected. Just enjoy this mini horror about Ghost Rider that has nothing to do with anything else. Unless that specific thing is put on there, we then have to get into what does this mean for the rest of the Marvel Universe? What does this mean for the Ghost Rider mythos? And yeah, Percy is a really good example of another person who just completely flipped off Aaron. And was like, this is what it all means. These are the things that matter. And they were very different things, and they were incompatible with the things that Aaron wrote in his Ghost Rider run. And so, like, in the end, was I better off? It was kind of a wash, because for all the cool things that that Percy showed me about what Ghost Rider could be, he also refused to play with the other people in the sandbox. And then he didn't leave things in a way that allowed other people, I feel like, to really create something holistic. He left trails for himself, and then he created Helverine, which is very cool, but like, that's very, I'm in this for number one. Like, I'm gonna make sure I have a book to write when I get kicked off of X Factor or X Force and Wolverine. And boy, did he ever. Proud of you. I hope you're working. You do have to take care of yourself first, but like, I'm the one who's reading the Ghost Rider, so I don't know.
And it was so interesting because the Ghost Rider book felt like a response to things going on with like Daredevil at the time, where Zdarsky was doing some unbelievably complicated things with Daredevil. And so then to jump over to Batman.
Zdarsky.
So I really love, I think it's 125 to 150. I really like Batman the Knight. I like Gotham War. All in all, Chip Zdarsky wrote about 50 plus issues. His actual run on Batman is 125 to 157. Man, I love everything until the final arc. I cannot figure out where this final arc comes from. Like, I don't know. I had the same problem with his Daredevil too. His Batman run up through 152 gets a B+, A-. This last arc versus KG Beast as Commander Starr, Commissioner Gordon murders the mayor of. This was not my favorite final arc, and Riddler's even one of my favorite Batman villains. This is just not my arc. I don't know. As somebody who didn't read every page of this era.
Yeah.
Did you feel like anything?
So what I was looking for is the vibes of the intensely woven long tapestry that Zdarsky gave me in Daredevil. Zdarsky's Daredevil is where I started reading Daredevil in modern times. Again, thank this one. And there are problems with what happens after Devil's Reign and how Daredevil's story under Zdarsky ends, but it is, you cannot deny, a tapestry. He starts with all of the threads that he's going to do, his ideas about who Daredevil is, his ideas about who Wilson is, his ideas about who Elektra is, what the Hand is, what the purpose of Daredevil is, what his relationship with God is, all of these things, and what Hell's Kitchen is, what Manhattan is, what superheroes are, what villains are, what bigger villains are, what money is, all of this stuff. By the last issue, he has said, and that is what I think, do with it what you will. What happened after that, that's somebody else's problem. I don't think, again, it's sort of like the thing that's like frustrating me about what happened to Aaron. Aaron wrote all this cool stuff about Ghost Rider, and then the next guy came along and was like, here's other cool ideas. And remind me who's writing it now.
Which one?
Saladin Ahmed. Saladin Ahmed, you know, I do respect that he at least gestured at a lot of the stuff that came from Zdarsky, or like a few big ideas that came from Zdarsky to start his run. But then he really just went off in his own directions and kind of said, actually, this is what Daredevil is, and this is what he's about, and this is what he thinks. And they're kind of different things, and they're at odds. So I was looking for that Zdarskyan tapestry when I picked up this last arc. And what I was really prepared to say to you is like, hey, I'm going to let you riff a little bit, and I'll like know what happened, but like, I'm not going to be able to talk to you about it because there's going to be so much that he's referencing from the rest of his run that I'm not going to have understood or read, because that's how he writes. That's how he wrote Daredevil. So it's probably how he's going to be writing Batman, because they're very similar characters. No, I mean, like, dear reader, if you want to start, you could start with this last arc, and you really... there's very little that is in here. And this is insane. It's comics. Like, I so infrequently have a moment if I start in the middle of somebody's run or deep into numbers where I'm not like, I have no idea what they're referencing here or talking about, but I'm going to soldier through. That issue was confusing because I didn't really know what they were talking about, but I get the gist. No, this was all... you don't really need to have read any of his run to start this final arc in a way that's maybe not good. Like, I think that's a great thing to say, to be like, you're welcome under the tent. Anybody can come in and read. But there's a point at which when you've been writing for this long and you're somebody like Zdarsky, I sort of come for
the payoff?
For the payoff, because I really, you know, and it just felt like it was immediately apparent to me that like the Riddler was not the ultimate villain for Batman the way that Wilson was the ultimate villain for Daredevil from issue 1. No matter when there's a lot of other stuff happening in that Daredevil run that has nothing to do with Matt versus Wilson, at the end of the day, that's one of the really big ones. And it's that in the hand, basically. And they're always he's always kind of weaving back and forth between them. And I know there's a ton of Joker stuff in the Zdarsky Batman run. Joker is never mentioned once. I really don't believe that this run, I could be totally wrong, and I think you would have mentioned this, so I don't think I'm wrong. I do not feel that this run was, throughout its entire length, very concerned with Russia and communism and the threat that those things present to Gotham City. But boy, is this last arc very certain that this is an existential threat to Batman's world, the way that the demons of hell are a threat to Matt's worlds.
Well, and then the big metaphor of Gotham is basically America.
Yeah.
And so was this just a Captain America run? Was this just a Cap run that didn't work out? Like, did Zdarsky pitch a Cap run? Marvel saying no.
Yeah, I mean, because I could have seen, because, you know, KG Beast, obviously a character that already exists, but, like, it's also, I mean, it's a storyline that I've seen Marvel do a lot. I don't know if DC has done it a lot, but it is the Russian infiltrators. I mean, Aaron did it during his run with the Red Guard. Like, there's a lot of Russian infiltrators and the interplay between these two cultures. We also got it in X-Men a lot because Russia wouldn't recognize Krakoa as a nation. I think that's a really good question that I didn't even think about, but yeah, I mean, this essentially could have been a Cap run where KG Beast was actually Red Guard.
Iron Man. It would have been Iron Man because of failsafe. It would have been Iron Man, and it would have been another Iron Suit, and it still would have been like Crimson Dynamo.
Who does David Harbour play?
Red Guardian.
It's Red Guardian. Thank you. So I was like, this is just Red Guardian.
Yeah.
In a Cap outfit, but I is it perfectly, I enjoyed reading it. Like, it was a good detective story.
Yeah. It's a fine arc.
Yeah, it is, but I could immediately tell that I was not experiencing the end of a man's magnum opus stamp on a character the way that I can tell you if you read the last... It's difficult to read the last 6 issues of that Daredevil run, but if you read the last arc of Daredevil, which is essentially 1 through 14 of everything that happens post Devil's Reign, that is, for one thing, very difficult to read on its own. You do sort of need to have read what came before, and then it really does talk so much about everything that was in the rest of Zdarsky's run. The only thing it does not talk about that much is Wilson Fisk, because that ended in Devil's Reign. So he did actually get to call that stuff. But yeah, I don't know. This was just this felt a little pedestrian, which I just wasn't expecting from kind of the master of the character, the way that Zdarsky is.
And I felt like every villain showed up. It's Riddler with the Mad Hatter's glasses, using the Court of Owls, who are using him through KG Beast. Then the Mad Hatter actually shows up. It just felt like they threw everything they could at it. And it was, the Court of Owls had no place here. They were not, it's sort of like, if you, just to be Doctor Strange for a minute, if you summon big magic, you better be using big fucking magic. You don't bring in the most powerful defender gods for a minor spell. And I feel like Court of Owls were used for an arc that this would have been a great first arc for somebody, a great middle arc for somebody. This was not a finale arc. And the run gets like I said, an A-, but this arc, I got to give this arc a C. And I don't love it as a finale, unfortunately.
I'm deferring to you a little bit on the grade. For me, the experience of it was a solid B. And I'm aware that there's, in the grander context, that really is going to lower the grade. But because I didn't get to experience that, it's only just, I can rightly assume, but it wouldn't be fair for me to like put that on it because I did not read the stuff that came before. But you just very much can feel that it doesn't have a connection to a lot of the stuff before. Also, man, Zdarsky, who is a little bit older than we are, is experiencing some feelings about age that he played out through Jim Gordon having an affair with a lady. And I will at the very least say that the fact that it ended with the lady being like, you guys blow, and just piecing out was very good. But there was a lot of like, man, this old man is having a midlife crisis. And again, it just speaks to that sort of thing about like people, it's tough for people to age in comics. I do appreciate that he wrote about, you know, kind of the difficulties of aging and the complexities of it. It wasn't really that, well, now you're relegated to weak character status. But it also really is like, well, what are we going to do with this old man? Like, put him in this weird position because it gives us something to write about.
And it bounces off of who he was in year one, where he has an affair. So there's like resonance, but it really comes off like old man so proud he gets up because he just started TRT.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know, Gordon was one of my, how did you feel about like he did it all because of mind control glasses?
I thought it was such a weak thing because it felt like nobody could decide what, like, between Zdarsky, editorial, maybe publishing mandate because it's a popular character, or like you're going to see a version of Jim Gordon all the time. It felt like nobody could really decide if they wanted it to have happened and been intentional or not, to the point where like they suggest that Jim Gordon murdered this person. He says flat out he didn't. Batman, go investigate. Batman goes to investigate. Fully, he's like, you absolutely did do it. You did shoot this person. And Jim Gordon's like, yeah, I just wanted to like, I wanted you to like prove that I did. And then at the last minute, Batman's like, wait, no, you didn't, because there is secret technology involved.
Oh, you mean there's magical mind control?
Mind control.
Like the Kingpin's staff in Devil's Reign that caused everybody to do things they normally wouldn't have done?
And then he just keeps going with it, and Jim goes, the glasses had fallen off, or something. He's like, and then Batman goes, right, but it lasts a little longer than you think. It stays in your system for up to 24 hours, so you really got to wait before you drive. And it's just like, it wasn't even that thing of like, so are we man or are we monster? It was literally the question of like, so I don't actually know. I guess like I'm leaving a hole for the next writer. If he wants to say definitively Jim Gordon's a bad guy, he can. But if he wants to say it wasn't, he didn't actually do it, he can say that no, like the technology definitely takes a while to wear off. But for the reader in the moment, it's just like, okay, so I'm not moved by this at all. I'm just confused.
And then, but like, the next writer is Jeff Loeb. And so I just want to point out that Hush 2 is what's next. Or as it's known, HU2H. And is Batman better off? He almost had a brother, and then he didn't. Robin like never came up in this. There's more Robin in one issue of Shazam than there was in this whole arc.
Which was actually, thank you for bringing that up. That was an insane thing to me, that in the midst of this huge crisis for Gotham. And this is one of those things where like sometimes I'm like, maybe I don't know because I'm still new to DC. I would have thought a bunch of them would have shown up.
Yes, in fact, it's hard for me to understand where Robin is not in this. Like when the Zdarsky run is so Robin concerned.
And it just felt like this would have been an arc, because a big part of it is, a lot of people saying like Bruce Wayne and Batman are bad for the city.
Separately.
Right, yes. It might have been really nice to see all of the Robins show up to be like, no, you are really good for this. Like you, our dad, are really good for the city, and you have shown us how to help it. And it just sort of felt like, I don't know, it didn't feel like doing that run of like, no, he has to be on his own, because he's constantly with Jim Gordon and his mom's best friend. And
the arc before is him and Selina going to Zarnia to get the mother box, and then spending an indefined amount of time on the private beach.
And then she's not there, which also brought me to the question of like the new Catwoman arc starts, and it seems like they're not together, and they keep talking about how like maybe they're not going to get their happy ending, but nothing that I've read, and I've read most of the stuff where they're together between when they're at the resort and the end of this arc, there's no thing where they're like, we actually can't make it work. They specifically say, we will make it work until we are unable to anymore. And then she's nowhere to be found in this last arc, and she has fled the country in her arc in a way that makes it feel like she is not with Batman.
Right.
But there is no understanding of like, they agreed that a thief and a hero can't make it work, or that it's too violent, or Damian's too annoying. There's a lot of confusion for me around Bat stuff at all times, and it is not resolved by anything that has happened in the last 6 months. And I'll tell you what, I do not expect Hush 2 to improve the problem.
No. I definitely think giving two multi-decade titans their own story to revisit something they did decades ago, I think you're making a moment.
But it's okay, because there will be 18 other Batman stories, related or not, it'll never be clear, that we can read instead.
And we're already enjoying that Detective Comics story, the detective one.
Oh yeah.
We're already having a great time with another title. But I do want to say something, because in 152, the Birds of Prey got a backup, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the only reason I'm okay with that backup is because Damian is one of the main stars of the Absolute Power Wonder Woman arc. So it was kind of like trading characters all over the DC universe so that the villains couldn't beat them. That was kind of cool. But then the thing that really struck me about Shazam is Shazam. But this was definitely a John Kent story that featured Damian and some Shazam characters. But this was a really great issue of a Superboy book.
And call it that.
Call it a Superboy one-shot.
Yeah.
I understand that maybe one-shots don't sell as well. Maybe you wanted to test drive Sina Grace on this. Maybe this was originally Shazam, Superboy, a Valentine's Day special, and you decided not to make this a Valentine's Day special because it wasn't close enough to Valentine's Day, and so instead we got the Lex in the City story.
This is a much better Valentine's Day story, even though it's not really, I mean, like it's very romantic at the end, but it takes a hot minute to get there. This was one thing that we forget, don't talk about, doesn't get mentioned, gets kind of put in a weird place, is the childhood, the past, the like reflection on childhood that a lot of gay people do, because as soon as you bring queer identity into a lot of media and stories, people call it adult. And so we oftentimes do not get to tell stories about how gay people dealt with their childhoods. You know, I knew I was gay when I was like 8 years old. And, you know, I wasn't like knew that I was gay because I was insanely horny and just had to have sex. I knew that I liked boys. And then I was just a little kid who wanted to like boys and play and, you know, play pretend and do all the things that I wanted to do. And there are many ways that my childhood was dark and sad. And that's essentially what is happening for John Kent here. He has a moment where he has to confront the fact that he is an adult now and adulthood is difficult. And he was a child at one time. And all of these great things that have happened to him, being a queer out man who has a boyfriend and a live-in partner that he loves and is a superhero, have sort of not stopped him yearning for the simplicity of childhood. And that is something that is true for all queer people, no matter how dick piggish our adult lives may be. Like, we still reflect on our childhoods and sort of still wish for that simplicity and sort of wonder about how we got to where we are. That's what this is. It's very sweet. Again, as with many of the books from this week, the packaging is weird and becomes part of the issue. This is just issue 20 of Shazam, a book that I have not read a single previous issue of. I was fine to pick this one up. Feel like this would not have capped anything off from the previous 19 issues. Feel like it's not going to have anything to do with issues 21 and onward. Why was this not a Valentine's issue? Why was this not a Superboy one-shot? I don't know what to do with it.
And I wonder, like, what was the value of publishing an issue that felt barely like a Shazam issue? Is it just that important to not miss a shipping cycle?
Right.
Is it just that important to not miss a story in that way? And do one-shots called Superboy just not sell that well? But a Sina Grace guest appearance on a title sells great. I don't know what led to this decision. I actually like the issue a lot.
Yeah.
B+.
Yeah.
Definitely loved the issue, appreciated the art. Wonder a lot about the container. Wonder a lot about the container of that being the end of the Batman run. Wonder a lot about the container of that being the end of the Ghost Rider arc. Wonder about that being the first issue of the Timeless arc.
Yeah, all these things. I really think that it's so I mean, last week we talked about just this idea of like maybe doing more like magazine anthology books that were more expensive but came out less frequently. There's so much worth in this industry really stepping back and saying like, we got to do things very differently and with a lot more intention.
Yeah.
And the clear lack of intention, the clear just like doing it by numbers. Well, we publish a book, so we're publishing a book this month. Somebody better write that book. And this person comes and they're like, yeah, I don't know. Here's an idea. It just doesn't. Oftentimes it leaves what are perfectly good stories without the space to breathe and without the right container to be in. And with audiences just going like, okay, but what do I do with this? What do you want from me? Like, do you want me to invest in old Power Man Luke Cage and his adventures at the end of time? And what are you going to do if I say yes? Because that's the thing is like, I'm so reticent on all this stuff because you guys burn me all the time. When I get into the Spirit of Variance, a character I went fucking insane for when he was introduced in Cy Spurrier's time on Krakoa. I'm online posting about this character nonstop, and people are responding. Like, it's, you know, I know I'm not alone in this. I know maybe it's not a worldwide fandom, but like, this is a non-zero amount of people being like, oh, you introduced this idea? I love it. I'm buying. I'll take it. Tell me more. And so often Marvel just goes, nah. So why did I get invested? Like, what was the point? Why am I going to buy the rest of this Timeless book? I don't really trust. For one thing, I don't love it enough to do so. But if I did, I don't trust that you're going to take care of me. I don't trust that 6 issues is going to have been worth my money investing in the core of the Marvel universe and like what this character could bring to it. And because it is serialized storytelling in a shared universe that is ongoing and changes constantly, it is actually not enough to just be a good story. Sometimes it is. Sometimes when you say, this is just a story, this is just a one-time thing, this is just a horror Ghost Rider story, and it has nothing to do with anything else, and it's not connected, and you're not going to see this character become another Ghost Rider. This is just Ghost Rider having spooky adventures. Okay, sure, I'll buy that too. But when you say, hey, here's something about the cosmos and everything that happened in Marvel, and it features the One Above All and the Dragon of Shaolo and Bob the Sentry, who the fuck knows what's happening there, all these important things, get into it. Fool me once, dudes.
And that's what it winds up becoming. How many times have we said, oh, well, this is a 4-issue mini, so they probably won't go as deep as they do in a 6-issue mini. I don't know anymore. Now I'm starting to think when you do a 4-issue mini, you just cut 2 issues of dumb.
Yep.
And when you do a 2-issue mini, like when it's like really one of those like special edition prestiges, I feel like most of the time you just make them double sized, so they're just 4 issues anyway. And so we're just getting the same story. We're getting the same amount of it. And when it is one of these little one and dones, like the Shazam story, it winds up being the same amount of story, whether it's 8 pages or 22 pages. And so then you're talking about how much do I invest in a character? What's the worth in it? And, you referred to it as, first of all, when we get the opportunity to write The Return of Krakoa, my title is going to be called Time on Krakoa. Yours can be called Space on Krakoa. I'm not going to be picky about his. But Cy Spurrier's work on Krakoa, that's the spinoff. It was spread across so many titles. And that actually kind of had an intentionality feeling to it, that the titles did reset so frequently. But when that all of a sudden became what they did with some writers, it felt unintentional. And Spirit of Variance felt, because he was part of this cycle of stories that did come back and go away, it felt like he could show up somewhere else, and that he hasn't feels incongruous with the bigger idea of the Marvel Universe. But the other thing it reminds me is that there's certain things that every part of the Marvel Universe believes are theirs. Like, every part of the Marvel Universe believes they can do their own Ghost Rider. They'll just make one up. And they all believe they can have their own symbiote. And they all believe that they can have their own mutant. And I think they should. That's a healthy attitude. But like, I think where it's a little too much for me is because Shazam is the long-standing book that deals with body transformation issues, which is a topic that is central to queer storytelling. Does that mean that it gets, as a title, its own Superboy? That's where I'm a little bit less clear. But I think what I'm really kind of heartbroken about is that there isn't a Spirits of Vengeance book that's what we wanted, which was 2 to 3 short stories featuring different Spirits of Vengeance, maybe a core story, an A that never changes, and a B that changes constantly. I'd gladly write the A if you wrote the B. I'd trade off with you, whatever Marvel wants to give us. I don't know. I liked this week's haul a lot, actually. I didn't like Batman as a finale. I didn't like Spirits of Vengeance as a finale. And I didn't like Timeless as a number 1. But if you'd made them all what they are, issue, an arc of Batman, which this was not a finale to me by definition. If you made this an arc of Luke Cage and put this with that other issue from 2023, at this point, 14 months ago, if you had done a better job packaging some of these titles, like the Superboy book, making the Spirits titles one big title. It could have even changed names. I would have been fine if it was called Spirits number 7 of Violence. Like, I'd live with it. But
or Spirits of Vengeance, and then it's crossed out on the title and it's Violence, but this was number 7, guys. It is number 7. Like, it, what a bummer. Yeah, I mean, all around, same thing. Everything had good story in it, and all the bones are good. All the ideas are really beautiful. Really great writers, fantastic artists, just done a little bit dirty by other factors that are important. That's, at the end of the day, part of like reviewing this stuff and critiquing it and examining the bigger picture, is pointing out that like seemingly ancillary components, when they're constantly there no matter what, are important. So that is where we do get critical, even when something is beloved and we're happy to have read it.
Well, fuck. And I just, because when you said it's things outside their control, I was like, no, I blame Chip Zdarsky for the Dying City. I blame him fully for that arc. And then I'm like, wait, but hold on. Wouldn't I blame the editor for not saying this doesn't feel like a finale? And now I'm realizing, oh my God, this must be the thing that keeps happening to Chip Zdarsky. He pitches these ideas that are so cool. Editorial says they've got to be events. Was Failsafe's defeat in absolute power his finale? And did they take it from him to make an event? Was Daredevil always meant to have a little bit more of a final confrontation with Kingpin? But did so much of that have to go in the event for Devil's Reign? Now I'm curious of the things that I've always thought were still the artist's fault and how much they are actually a bigger publishing decision. Well, I had a great time.
Me too.
Real fucking good. Always love being in the same box with you, my dog, and Wolverine. Also, Matt, right behind me right there. Hey, what's up, boy? Also, we have Kevo with us today. Kevo, that's, of course, Kevo Really. You can find him on all the socials. I think he's going to come in and say goodbye.
Have a good time.
All right. So, as for me, I'm with this guy right now. So, where can everybody find you?
You can find me at TK Accidental on all your socials.
Oh, and then you can find me with him. But once he's gone, that'd be Nico Action, NICOACTION, Nico Action Music, NICOACTION, MUSIC. All the feeds of this show, like HTML, Husbands Talking More or Less, X is for podcast, that's This Guy Comics, X is for show, where you can check us out talking about all sorts of live action stuff, movies, music, TV, and more. Don't forget to do 3 things for yourselves, though. Number 1, I need you guys to stay safe. It's a crazy world out there. Number 2, you guys got to be brave because we love who you are. But number 3, that's the one that matters. You guys, I got to evolve daily. Who you were yesterday, incredible. Who you are today, phenoms. But who you are tomorrow, that's the real dream, and we can't wait to be there with you. So until then, let's hope Hush 2 is better than I'm worrying, and we'll see you.